Welcome into the PFF State of the Franchise. It is your Los Angeles Chargers edition. Sam, the Chargers this offseason, not a ton of sexy moves. It's just bringing back a few guys, re-signings, a blocking tight end in Virgil Green. We usually spend a little bit of time discussing the free agent signings, but what do you think of what they've done before we start to look forward to the draft?
Yeah, what is the opposite of sexy? Because that's what the Chargers did this
Blocking
offseason.
tight ends are the opposite of sexy.
Blocking tight ends are the opposite of sexy. They brought in a blocking tight end. They re-signed some of their own.
Michael Schofield's back on tackle. Adrian Phillips at safety. Matt Slosson's going to walk. Jeremy Atauchu's out. So not a ton of massive moves when it comes to the Chargers.
None of this is moving the needle. But the move that could move the needle for the Chargers is still another one that's internal. They're going to get one of last year's impact rookies back. Forrest Lamp tore his ACL before the season even came.
We love Lamp.
A guy who is either going to dominate a guard or get a shot to play tackle and dominate there as well from what we've seen. He's one of these guys who gets pegged as a guard only at the next level because he's got short arms, little T-Rex arms. So he's going to kick inside the guard. But realistically, we've only seen him dominate outside at tackle. And until he proves otherwise, I think he deserves a shot to play there. In his final season in college, he had a grade in the 90s. He allowed 4 total pressures all season long, and they didn't have him on the field. They still desperately need offensive line help. Getting him back in the lineup could be the biggest move they make this offseason, just getting him healthy.
Yeah, last year it looked like they were doing a better job on the offensive line. They were at least adding talent between Lamp, between Dan Feeney, who they also drafted in the 3rd round in 2017. They also bring in Mike Pouncey. When you talk about big moves, this is probably the biggest one. He's going to come in and play center. But he's also coming off the worst year of his career. And he's, like a lot of these other guys that hit the open market this year, he's a couple years removed from his best play. But it is one of those offensive lines where on paper, with Feeney, with Pouncey, with a Lamp, like you said, I think they're going to play him at guard, unfortunately.
At least to start with. Until somebody gets hurt at tackle, they need to kick him out and he saves the day.
We're just big believers in if a guy shows that he can play tackle in college, just let him do it in the NFL because it's just such a valuable position. But let's pretend Lamp is probably going to play guard with Russell Okung at left tackle. I mean, it's creeping back toward at least an average offensive line, and that's going to bode really well for Phillip Rivers, who the last couple of years has just been under an immense amount of pressure.
Yeah, we've said before, an offensive line is not necessarily about how good all the people are. It's about how bad they are. And if you have a weak link that is bad enough that it is single-handedly capable of torpedoing your offensive game plan, that's a problem. They've had multiple players over the last few years that are single-handedly capable of ruining an offensive game plan or destroying Phillip Rivers' afternoon. They're going to hope to just remove each one of those weak links in sequence, and eventually they'll get there. So even if they don't find 5 stars, they'll find 5 guys that are at least average enough that Phillip Rivers is able to do his thing.
I think there's still a little bit more room to maybe attack it, add some tackle depth perhaps in the draft, and continue to build that line for the future. It's just a fascinating roster when you look at the Chargers because they don't have great depth. We're talking about their line struggling. Their defensive line is good on the edge but not in the interior. But the Chargers have so many high-end players. The PFF's #1 graded corner in Casey Hayward, 2 top 10 edge defenders, Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, Phillip Rivers still more than capable at quarterback, Keenan Allen, a top 5 wide receiver last year. So they have all this high-end talent, but you've got to start filling in the rest of that roster. And if they do it well in the draft here, we're talking about a very dangerous team next year.
And they've been one of the most statistically unlucky teams in the past few seasons in terms of injuries. You know, guys like Jason Verrett, like Forrest Lamp, all these guys have gone down, missed time. Keenan Allen has missed time as well. If they can just get a run of being healthy for a little while, then you'll see this team is dramatically more talented than they've shown over the past couple of seasons because half their talent has been sitting in the training room getting worked on. They haven't been out on the field. So, you know, that secondary could immediately become one of the best in the NFL if you can team Casey Hayward up with Jason Verrett, who was supposed to be their #1. Plus, you've got the draft to come to add talent, to add depth to this team. For years now, it seems like we've been saying the Chargers are primed to go on this run and become a contender. Maybe this is the year that the talent gets added enough for them to do that.
This is the year for the Chargers. Do love the way that secondary is coming out. 2017 5th-round pick Desmond King had an outstanding season. He backed up what we saw in college, one of the highest graded corners year over year at the college level. When we look forward to the draft, I feel like there are still some glaring holes. Would love to see a better coverage linebacker. They really struggled with some of their guys in space last year. And then the defensive line. Brandon Mebane is their big body in the middle, but he's getting old. Corey Liuget has been up and down, had his own issues. So want to see a big body look at Vita Vea from Washington, potentially middle of that first round, might be a great fit as a nose tackle, 3-down guy. But I do think they just need to get better in the trenches on both sides and probably at linebacker.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of positions you still need to add, especially the offensive line is still a hole, even with Forrest Lamp coming back. Tackle is a problem. They could stand to add depth anywhere along that offensive line. But this is a team moving in the right direction.
The one other thing I'll say, Phillip Rivers is part of that quarterback class of 2004. It's Rivers, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger.
Succession plan.
Yes, I've said this for a while. All of those teams need to be in the market for their next quarterback, so don't be surprised if they start to look, and it's a deep quarterback class, 6 potential first-round picks. Maybe this is the year that they get the next guy for Phillip Rivers, his replacement. But Rivers still has plenty left in the tank, and the Chargers have a high-end roster at the right spots. They have to add some depth, and they'll be a dangerous team in that AFC West next year. That is your Los Angeles Chargers State of the Franchise, powered by PFF Elite.